So you spend $5,000 on leads, right? And you have one account that gets 3 leads, the other one gets 15 leads. We want to explain how we're able to flip that. My name is Chris with Advanced Marketers, and I have
Nate with Advanced Marketers, Director of Google. Yeah, so it all matters about like lead quality. In the early phases, let's say the first 7 days, you're gonna get a lot of clicks at sporadic rates at different CPCs. You're not gonna get the best quality leads, but eventually after we gather 30 days worth of data and enough conversion data, we'll be able to make decisions and turn off underperforming assets such as ad groups, keywords, ads, and other assets. This account didn't have enough time or the data to make the right decisions. We did phase 1 optimizations, maybe 60 to 90 days within after the account was active. So yeah, we didn't have enough conversion data to make those decisions up until the 60-day mark.
Yeah, this was a red flagger. This was one that, what happens is if somebody has some questions and they are very adamant and they really want to know specific details about an account, then sometimes I'll step in and we'll have like calls every 2 days. You have to get a little creative because with Google, what happens is we get, we're looking at numbers all the time, right? We're like stuck in the platform. And so what happens is that we don't look at sometimes the search terms because we were targeting ADU builders, ADU contractor, but we found that the search terms, and by the way, search terms, there's a difference, right? We're talking about negative keywords. I want to target ADU builders, but then search terms is what you actually got found for. So for ADU builders, people were typing in, how much does it cost to build an ADU? How much is an ADU? The cost per click was like $4, $6 versus ADU builders, which was like $10 or $15. So the cost per click is less, meaning that, we could get more clicks. And if we get more clicks, then how can we get those people to actually fill out a form and become a lead? And so we created a cost, like a calculator, where it's a form where they can fill out a form to find out how much it costs, since that's what everybody's typing in. And we were able to get people to convert into a lead a little higher up in the funnel, right? We could talk about that in a whole different video. There's different stages people go through when they purchase. You got the high, middle, and bottom, and each stage determines like where they are in their buying process. They were at the very top of their buying process, which could be good because with contractors, you want to be that first guy to go out so you can close them. And so we went ahead and created a calculator to attack that search volume. The problem is that they got a lot of leads. They went out and they started doing proposals, but they weren't able to close those leads. So there's a lot of moving parts to lead gen, right? And now that we sent the leads, people were on the phone, they were interested, they did want them to give them a quote. They did go out and provided the quotes as well. The failing part, in my opinion, was that they were moving too slow. We weren't following up with the leads, right? We were texting them, there's a text automation, that's cool. But there's also like a human connection in sales. You have to like know how to sell. This person's good at his trades, and I really respect these people. They're like really cool people. It's just it seemed like there was some just disconnects there internally in the company.
Yeah.
So
another factor that we're thinking that affected the campaign is like in the early September days, we implemented the cost calculator. And if you could see on my screen, I'm showing you a picture of what the cost calculator looks like on the website. It's very inviting. It's just a zip code and then versus a phone call. So it got kind of lopsided after we implemented the calculator. So Google is now optimizing for lead forms because it's an easier conversion to get as opposed to a 60-second call. So over time, this company was getting more lead forms than phone calls. And obviously phone calls close at a higher rate. And when a company doesn't, follow up on their lead forms on a timely fashion, then, the quality of the lead also drops. So we're seeing a combination of that as well over time.
yeah, and also like when we create a campaign like this, we have a feature called Call Connect. So a lead form comes in, the system actually calls you. It says John Doe new lead, John Doe new lead. Then it calls John Doe for them. So it does all the work for them. But sometimes our clients don't answer their calls. So then the Call Connect doesn't even work. And forms, you have to call them quick. Otherwise, they forget. So, and sometimes you got to think about it, right? Always put yourself in that lead, in that customer's shoes. Like I put myself in the business owner's shoes when they're speaking with us. Like business owners that run contracting businesses, you should put yourself in that lead's shoes. If I filled out a form online, then you don't call me until tomorrow, right? And I'm right here just doing my normal daily activities. Maybe I'm working, maybe I'm eating dinner, I'm doing something, right? And I get a call from a random number that I don't know. I'm probably not gonna answer that call. And if I do, probably tired of all the spam calls I get throughout the day, and I'm not gonna be the nicest person on the call because I just wanna get you off my phone. Now let's put yourself in the business owner's shoes, right? The guy calling the lead. And if you're not good at sales and you don't understand the psychology behind it, you're gonna call the lead and then they're gonna say, I don't know who you are, I don't remember filling that out. And you're gonna tell the marketer that lead was bad. They didn't even know what I was calling for. Or the other part is that person doesn't answer because they don't know your number, and then you don't call them ever again. So there's so many steps in it. And so a lot of times with these lead forms, it's very important to call those leads as fast as possible. And that's where we see success, is to be able to call them constantly until they actually pick up. They buy. In sales, they say buy or die. Either the guy buys or eventually falls off the call cycle and he kind of dies, or the lead dies. So this is the area I'm going to show you guys where the count kind of tanked, right? So if you look at the cost per conversion, $261, like that is supreme for ADU leads or remodeling leads for any contractor out there. That's like really good. This is really dialed in. And then you notice it starts going up and up and up and then up. Right? And so what happened here? Like, why did this go up? Right? Because Google's looking at, they're looking at the metrics, right? And Google's providing a conversion is a lead. It's a phone call over 60 seconds or a lead form. And so when we look at the date range here, October, around basically 21st through the November 3rd, these are the metrics Google looks at, right? So this one looks like it was 652, and this was the culprit at 1,869, right? So kitchen seemed like a very bad campaign. However, when we actually look at the data and we look at the phone calls, this account had a total of 3 calls, right? So this conversion rate of 1,800 was actually less. They just missed the actual calls. And same thing here. What I'm seeing here, if you notice, it's going to be one conversion. It shows one conversion on the campaign, but in reality, he had 3 conversions. So that number changes this drastically. 1,869 divided by 3, $623. So actually, the cost per conversion was it didn't really make a adjustment, right? It actually stuck at the 600 mark.
Correct.
The problem is that when somebody doesn't answer their call, now Google starts thinking that you don't want those leads. That's where campaigns go through a relearning phase.
So yeah, relying on the number of phone calls versus like the number of conversions is also another reliable data point to look at.
In the beginning of a campaign, it's like a double-edged sword, right? So we don't want you to spend that much because we don't want you spending on a lot of negative keywords. But sometimes you have to spend a lot to get to the negative keywords. And so with this campaign, with the construction type business, you have to think of my scale is how much do you charge on average, right, for your job. So if you're doing ADU, your job size is $100,000. I like to go at 10% in ad spend. That's a good indicator for me to know how much it'll usually cost, right? If you're trying to generate enough leads to get a sale, usually about 10% of what that lead costs will help you generate that lead or that sale. Not even lead, but sale. So those are the metrics I look at. With this campaign, they started off with the 2K budget, and then they went up to a 3K budget. And there are tricks that we do that help speed up the optimization, right? First is we want to make sure that there's no negatives, because the more you spend, that means the more negatives you get. And so what we'll do sometimes is we'll hold the budget, we'll hoard it, and we'll just spend your whole budget in 1 week or 2 weeks. It's not the best case scenario. It's very risky. You want to make sure that you're really nice and tight on your keywords and your negatives, so that way when you do get a lead, you know it's a very good click and a good lead. So in this case, the way I was able to get them to spend more was I had said, hey, let's test doubling the budget for 2 weeks. Let's see what happens. They were okay with it. We did that. Boom, they started generating leads. I asked them 2 weeks later, hey, do you want to keep this on or turn it off, and they wanted to keep it on because they saw the leads and traction coming in, and the leads that they were getting, they were speaking with, they were going out, they were doing proposals and estimates. And so in the beginning, the campaign, the budget, it's too small for them to continue spending and to scale. They needed to spend more. So sometimes you have to run tricks and do like, let's do a blitz. 2 weeks, let's double your budget and let's see what happens. And most of the time, they'll understand more. They'll understand that, okay, well, I need to spend more to get these leads. And then they're okay with it because of the profit margins and how much they make on them.
To touch on what Chris was saying about doubling the budget, as you can see on our screen right here, August 2025, the total spend was about $2,000 per month, 4 phone calls, cost per conversion, about $1,000. Next month, as Chris mentioned, doubled the budget, almost tripled the budget to $6,800. Cost per conversion has decreased to $850 versus $1,000. The following month afterwards, the spend is $7,300. Cost per conversion has decreased to $450. So that's a prime example of increasing budget in a smart way to get your leads at a cheaper rate.
Yeah, sometimes you have to spend more to actually pay less per lead. In order to get to the same auction as your competitors, sometimes you have to pay more because you're just not spending enough. And the more you spend, actually the lower the cost per lead is. And this is a good indicator right here. So bidding is very important. There's different types of bidding. So one type is going to be maximize conversions, which we like to start with. A lot of people out there are probably going to say, he's not doing maximize clicks. Well, we've been doing this for a very long time. We've tested maximize clicks. We've tested maximize conversions. Reach out to us if you have questions about that. But anyways, maximize conversions is what we do. Maximize conversions. Conversion, remember, conversion is a lead. That's a phone call or a lead form. So with maximize conversions, we're able to get you as many conversions as possible with the budget that you have. We can maximize conversions. That's the definition of that. But then there's other bid adjustments. There's target ROAS, which is also like target return on investment, target CPA, which is target cost per acquisition. Acquisition is like a form, or later when we can send money back, we can say what acquisition is. There's also other ones like target, target impression share. So being like, that's gonna be too much. It's gonna be like target, like I wanna be the number one person all the time. That's not ideal unless you have like hundreds of thousands of dollars and you don't care what you spend and you just wanna like own Google and you just wanna be the guy with the biggest thing. And just show yourself to Google every freaking time.
Yeah, it's probably the least cost-efficient bidding strategy.
Yeah.
You're just telling Google you want to be like 100% on the top of the page, and you'll pay anything you want. I mean, anything possible to get there.
Yeah.
It's probably Google's favorite bidding strategy.
It sure is. It sure is. So if you can show like a campaign that, would you say like target CPA is like the holy grail of like running ads, or what would you say is like the best bidding adjustment is for ads?
Yeah, definitely target CPA is going to be like the most stable, the best bidding strategy to get to eventually, but it's always a 3-part phase in order to do it. So first is, the learning phase, which is going to be 5 to 7 days. And then beyond that, we accrue data for 30 days. As you can see on my screen, that's where this red line declines. And then after the 30 days, we set target CPA once we have a stable cost per action. And then we can see that this red line is our actual CPA, and then our target CPA is the blue, which gets lower, and we see it kind of stabilize. So this is a good example of how we change from maximize conversion here to target CPA here, and we consistently see that our cost per action is steady with our target CPA.
With this account, we were not able to achieve target CPA. The reason why we were not able to reach the target CPA was because there just wasn't enough conversions. Google doesn't have the data. So if Google has the data, then we can change and play with the data that's provided, but there's not enough conversions. Sometimes it's because there's just not enough leads coming in, but most of the time it's because just calls are not answered. Like literally, it's super simple. Like calls are just not answered, and we just don't have enough data for it. And in this case, that's what happened here. The summary why we couldn't optimize the account was because yes, there was not enough conversions, and the cost per conversion was a little high. We needed more conversions, I believe, with the cost, with either spend more or find another service so we can generate more leads at a lower cost. Welcome to Advanced at Night. Gets a little dark now. So the cool thing is, at least you know we're still working at almost 5:30. Okay, everybody, thank you for watching this video. Please go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram at Advanced Marketers or Crispy Closing, or subscribe to our channel, or click the link below if you're interested in our services. See you later.